So today we will be solving equations with variables on both sides. We go over the expectations in class. We will learn what to do when variables are on both sides of the equal sign. I will be able to solve equations with variables on both sides. So if we look at these equations, we can notice that we can recognize that all of these equations are the same in their column. And the way that we can tell that these are the same is if we would go through the process and we would subtract 2x from both sides. Let's fix this because that's not very pretty. So looking at this, we can subtract 2x from both sides, which would give us our positive 1x right here. And then we can look over here and we would subtract 5 from both sides, which would give us our positive 10. And then we would need to divide by 1 simply because there is that 1 coefficient out in front, which would give us our final answer of x equals 10. Now, you don't have to divide by 1. You could just recognize that 1x equals 10 is the same thing as x equals 10, because when there is no coefficient, when there is no coefficient in front of the variable, that means that it's 1, which means if there's a 1 in front of it, you do not have to have that variable, that coefficient. So on this second one over here, because we have a negative 6x, we're going to add 6x to both sides. We have to move it with the inverse operation, which is going to give us our positive 15x right here. Then we see that we have a negative 2, so we're going to add 2 to both sides, which will give us this positive 45 right here. And then we need to eliminate the coefficient that's in the front, so we divide both sides by 15, which is going to give us our final answer here of x equals 3. So let's come up with a checklist for how we will solve equations with variables on both sides. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to eliminate parentheses by using the distributive property. Now, if we remember from the previous lesson, distributive property means that if you have, that's not a very pretty, let's try that again. If you have an A times B plus C, that equals AB plus AC. Because what we needed to do is distribute this A to the B and A to the C, both terms inside the parentheses. Similarly, if we have A, B minus C, that's going to give us AB minus AC, because again, we would have to distribute the A to the B and the A to the C. But because we have this negative right here, the negative stays the same over here because the variable in front of the A is a positive, and a positive times a negative gives us a negative in the front. The next thing we're going to do is combine like terms, and that means that we are going to add or subtract keeping the same exponent. So that means if it's an x squared, it still needs to be an x squared or a y cubed or whatever you have as your variable. Or if it's x to the first, x to just a plain x, no variable or no exponent, then it would stay like that. The key thing about combining the like terms is they must be on the same side of the equal sign. And we'll expand on that in a little bit when we get to practicing the problems. The next step that we have is going to be, we're going to start by moving the x term with little brother, big brother. Thinking of this, little brothers always want to go and hang out with their big brothers. The big brothers are always cooler, whatever. And so we're going to move the smaller coefficient to the larger coefficient. And the way we're going to do that is using the inverse operation, which means, let's rewrite that one more time. Inverse operation means that we're going to use the opposite operation. If it is positive, we're going to subtract. If it's negative, we're going to add. Once we have moved the variable term to the same side, we're going to move the number with no variable using the inverse operation. Again, that means the opposite operation. If something has no variable, the other term that we use for it is the constant. So we're going to move the constant using the opposite operation or inverse operation. And the final step that we're going to do is dividing the coefficient of the x term on both sides. So we're going to finally get that x completely by itself, not tied with any number at all. Let's do a little bit of practice. So we're going to look over here, and we have this 15 plus 6x equals 54 plus 8x. So the first thing that we need to think of is, do we have any parentheses? No, so we don't need to worry about that first step. Second step, do we have any like terms on the same side of the equal sign that need to be combined? We do not. So now we're going to think which one of these is the annoying younger brother. And we see that 6x is smaller. So we're going to move 6x over here, which will give us an equation of 15 equals 54 plus 2x. The next step that we're going to do is we're going to move the constant, which is a negative 54 in this case, over to the side with the 15. That is going to give us a negative 39 equals 2x. And the final step that we're going to do for this equation is we're going to divide both sides by 2. So our final answer is going to be x equals negative 39 over 2, which is also equal to negative 19 and a half, or negative 19.5. So those are all of the options for answering that equation that we have. The next one that we have is negative x plus 7 minus 6x equals 19 minus 3x. And looking at this, we can see that this negative x and negative 6x are both on the same side of the equal sign. So we can go ahead and combine those two. So that's going to give us, let me write this in red. That's going to give us 7 minus 7x equals 19 minus 3x. What's a little bit funky about this, if you look at it, this negative 7x is actually going to be our smaller variable because negative 7 is smaller than negative 3. So we're going to add 7x to both sides, which is going to give us 7 equals 19 plus 4x. And this is the reason that we're going to want to move the smaller variable over, is it's more likely to give us a positive variable in front of our, a positive coefficient in front of our variable. Next, we're going to move the 19 over. So we're going to subtract 19 from both sides, which is going to give us a negative 12 equals a positive 4x. And the final step is we're going to divide by 4 on both sides, and that's going to give us a negative 3 equals x. So now we're going to look at 4x minus 15 equals 17 minus 4x. The first thing that we are going to do in this, since there's no parentheses, no terms that we need to combine, we're going to add 4x to both sides. So add 4x. So that's going to give us 8x minus 15 equals 17. The next step that we have is we're going to move the constant over. So we're going to add 15 to both sides, which is going to give us 8x equals 32. And our final step is we're going to divide both sides by 8, which is going to give us an x equals 4 on this particular equation. And that's going through the steps that we just wrote down on our checklist. So now we're going to go through our checklist one more time. We're going to keep referencing that each time that we go through and do one of these equations. So we're going to add 7x to both sides. Add 7x. That's going to give us 17x minus 22 equals 29. The next thing we're going to move over, following down our checklist, so we moved over the x term, little brother to big brother, using the inverse operation. It was a negative, so we added. Now we're going to move the number with no variable or constant, which is a negative 22, so we're going to add 22 to both sides, which will give us a 17x equals 51? Does that give us a 51? Yes, that gives us a 51. And then our final step is going to be 17. And our final answer will be x equals 3. There we go. Now, looking at this, the first thing that we need to look at, are there any parentheses? No, we have no parentheses. We do have two terms on the same side that need to be combined. So that's going to give us a 7r minus 4 equals 3 plus 8r. We're going to subtract 7r from both sides because that's the smaller exponent, or the smaller coefficient, not exponent. And that will give us a negative 4, which equals 3 plus r. The next thing we're going to move over is this 3. Since it's positive, we're going to subtract. So that's going to give us negative 7 equals r. And that is our final answer, since there is no exponent or no coefficient for the r value. Going through our checklist, we need to eliminate parentheses, and if we notice, both of these have parentheses, so I need to distribute the 3 to the 2x and the 3 to the negative 4. And then on this side, I need to distribute the 6 to the x and the 6 to the negative 2. Now I know there's going to be an equal sign in between them, so I'm going to put that there. 3 times 2x is going to equal 6x. 3 times 4, we are going to subtract 12. 6 times x is going to give me 6x. 6 times negative 2 is going to give me 12. If we notice, both of these equations are exactly the same. If we subtracted 6 and then added 12, we would get 0 equals 0. So this means that this particular equation is what we term as, let me get the right pen on here so that way I can write it out. We're going to call this an identity. And that means when something is an identity, it has infinite solutions. That means any number that you plug in for the x value is going to give you a correct answer. So there's an infinite number of solutions from negative infinity to positive infinity will make this equation true. Now, everybody's favorite thing, which is fractions. So let's start with this side. So we're going to distribute the 3 to the 3a and the 3 to the negative 2. So 3 times 3a is going to give us 9a. 3 times negative 2, we're going to subtract 6. And then we're going to come over here. We're going to distribute the 3/4 to 4 and 3/4 to negative 24. So what we can do for this expression is, hold on, let me fix this. So we've got 3 over 4 times 4. So our 4s are going to cancel out, which is going to give us 3. So that's going to equal 3. I don't know why that's so much bolder. Let's try that again. So that's going to give us 3. I'm going to write that one more time because I don't like how that looks. There we go. And then we're also going to need to multiply 3 over 4 times negative 24. And that will cancel out to a 1. And negative 24 is going to give us a negative 6. So 3 times negative 6 is going to give us a negative 18, which is what we're going to come and write over here in our equation. So it's going to be minus 18a. And from here, we will move the 18a over because that is smaller than the 9a. And that will give us a 27a minus 6 equals 3. And then we're going to add 6, move the constant to both sides, which is going to give us 27a equals 9. And our final step on this equation is going to be divide by 9 on both sides. No, we're not dividing by 9 on both sides. That was my brain did not click on that one. We're going to divide by the 27, which is the coefficient. That's what happens when you don't check your checklist. So A is going to equal 1/3. because 9 over 27 equals 1 over 3. So looking at word problems, if we remember from our previous lessons, what we do with word problems is cub. So if we remember cub, which is C-U-B. So the first thing that we need to do after we read the word problem, your sister can get $30 per day for selling fruit at the market, but she has to pay $60 at first for renting a stand. You can get $20 per day for helping your neighbor rake lawns. After how many days will your sister earn as much as you? So our first step, our C, stands for circle numbers. So we're going to circle 30, 60, and 20. The next thing it asks us to do is to underline what it's asking us to do. So after how many days will your sister earn as much as you? So I want to know after how many days will me and her be equal? The final thing that we need to do is put a box Our next word problem. At one gym, there's a $12 startup fee. After that, each month at the gym costs $20. At another gym, it costs $4 to start up, but after that, each month at the gym costs $22. After how many months will the cost of both gyms be the same? So again, we're going to remember cub. And the first thing that we do is we circle our numbers, which are 12, 20, 4, and 22. And just to help me, I'm going to do this to know that the 12 and the 20 go together, and the 4 and the 22. The next thing I do is underline, because I'm trying to figure out after how many months will the cost of both gyms be the same. And the final thing I do is box the keywords. So startup fee, each month. Same thing at startup, each month. So we can think of this as gym A and gym B. So this is going to be gym A. I don't like how that looks. Gym A. And this is going to be gym B. And this is just to help me, so I'm going to do gym A equals gym B is what I'm trying to figure out. That is what I'm trying to figure out. So I'm going to set up my equal sign right here in the middle. And so gym A tells me that there is a $12 setup fee. And after that, it's going to cost me $20 each month. Now, looking at gym B, it only costs me $4 to start up, but it costs me a whole $22 every month after that. So, going through my checklist once again, I'm going to eliminate parentheses. I don't have any parentheses, so I don't need to worry about distributing. All of my terms are already combined. All my like terms are already combined on each side of the equals. And so now I'm going to move the little brother over to his big brother, which will give me an equation of 12 equals 4 plus 2x. Now the next step that I have is to move the number with no variable, which is my constant. So I'm moving my negative 4 over, which is giving me an equation of 8 equals 2x. And once again, my final step in my problem is to divide both sides by 2, which gives me an answer of 4 equals x. So after 4 months, the gyms cost me the same amount of money. For this final one, I would like you to go ahead and show me what step 2 would be for this particular example. And go ahead and write it in and show me your answer. Thank you.